Hello everybody, welcome to the Laythrom channel. Matt here talking at you, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about audio. Specifically recording audio, some of the audio programs that you can get your hands on, because let's face it, anybody can go out and buy a 4K camera and have amazing video, but in the end, if you don't put any work, time, or effort into your audio, the video end of it's just going to absolutely suck, and that's what you're going to try and avoid here. So we're going to specifically talk about 3 different programs that's on the playlist for today. I know there are more out there. Some of them are more pro than others. Some of them are definitely more cheaper or more expensive, depending on how you want to look at it, than others, so on and so forth. And straight off the bat, I will say, before I get into this is always to each their own. I'm just throwing out a few different options, if you will, also throwing out my opinions on those options. Now, for you Mac users out there, you have at least 2 of the choices that I'm going to be mentioning in this video, but you also have GarageBand, which is essentially a watered down version or variant of Logic Pro. Sorry, I couldn't think of the name there for a minute. And actually, now that I think about it, I think all 3 of these that I'm going to be mentioning are available for Mac. But anyhow, without further ado, we have, first and foremost, Adobe Audition, Creative Cloud version. We also have Ableton Live. The version I have is 8.8.2 or 8.2.8 or something like that. We also have Sony SoundForge. Now, out of those 3, first and foremost, you see up front, in front of you on this wonderful YouTube video screen, is Adobe Audition. This is something that I generally used most of the time. Granted, yes, I do use Logic from time to time, especially if I'm speed editing, out in the field or something like that. I don't really use it for a lot of the fine-tune work, mainly because the only Mac that we really use is my MacBook Pro. All the other workstations are PCs, and unless I end up building a Hackintosh, it's really not worth it. But a lot of my work is done in Audition. Plain simple, clean cut, and methodical. Now, there are some downsides to Audition when compared to something like Logic, because Logic is a little bit more robust, if you will. Same as if I was trying to compare Audition to like Pro Tools. There's really no comparison there. Yes, you can get Audition to do exactly what Pro Tools can do in theory, but it's a lot more work. Now, as you'll see, on this here, we have both the ability to do a multitrack mixer and also a waveform mixer. Or not mixer, but a waveform show, display, however you want to word it. So you have your basic waves up here, and then you also have your spectrum, which is down in here. Now, this comes into handy from time to time, and I'm not going to get super technical. I'm just giving you the mix. But there are times where you're trying to get rid of noise, you're trying to get rid of other imperfections, things like that, that you will actually pay attention to the spectrum analyzer a little bit more than you think that you would. Onwards and whatever else you want to call it, above and beyond. Moving on. You have your files, you have your favorites, you have the ability to keep open your media browser, you also have your effects rack, markers, properties. As you can see, there are no markers in this project. It was basically thrown together. Doesn't matter. All my properties for each individual clip. And of course, your effects rack. Now you can go through and kind of play with certain effects. There are more effects available for some of your other programs, such as like Ableton, Logic again. There seems to be more effects, more plugins, but if you're just sitting down, you're not really worried about the music aspect, you're mainly looking on something for doing ADR, or you're looking for something, well, you could do ADR in Premiere. But either way, if you're looking to do something like voiceovers and things of that nature, you can go straight in Audition, record it real quick, and basically output your wave file and be done with it. All in all. Down here I have my history and also my video. This is, a video clip. It'll let you scrub through both. You don't have to. Again, it's personal choice. You have your editor right in front of you. You also have a mixer, which has exactly what a mixer has. You have your sliders, you have some knobs where you can have your effects and things like that, all set up, tailor-made to how you want to have it. You also have your master over here where you can completely peg that out on Unity or play with it however you wish. Also at the bottom you have a levels meter, and you also have your selection/view information. At the very, very bottom you have some of your more in-depth information, if you will. What your frequency of audio is, how many bits, your uncompressed audio size, what is this? Oh, duration, and also how much your particular hard drive that you're working off of has free as far as space goes. Aside from all this, you have the ability to drop multitracks. You do have the ability to stretch and compress some of your audio. And like I said, you do have the ability to throw in some effects, also some VSTs. But when you come into plugins and things of that nature above, doing like your noise cancellation, your third-party VSTs, things like that, you have a few, but you don't have a whole lot. Now, one of the good things about Adobe Audition is for those who are trying to be somewhat price conscious in a small amount of time, if you will. You can run a single app for about $20 a month through the Creative Cloud, or you could do, $50 a month for the entire thing. It's the entire Creative Cloud suite, and on top of which, if you're a student, it gets a little bit better. The entire thing's $20 a month. That gives you Audition along with a lot of other stuff. And yeah, pretty much. Oh wow! If you're a business, you're getting kind of screwed. That's just my 2 cents, but for the most part, everybody that's probably watching this is going to be an individual, so we'll stick with probably, either between $20 a month for just Audition, or if you're running, After Effects, Premiere, Audition, you want Photoshop, maybe Illustrator, so on and so forth, you're going to be paying about $50 a month. Unless you're a student, then it's 20. Going on from Audition, we have Ableton Live. Now, this is a little bit more geared towards, making music, just like Logic Pro or Logic or GarageBand. There's quite a few other ones out there on the market. This one takes a little bit of getting used to. It's not as intuitive. At least I don't think so. I found Adobe a little bit more intuitive than Ableton. But after a little while of basically fumbling through it and making myself learn it, some YouTube tips and tricks, tutorials, things like that, I pretty much got myself to a point to where I could figure it out and keep myself going strong. Now, even though I said this is more geared towards, making music, you don't have to use it a lot or utilize it for just that. You can also do like your ADR, you want to do voiceover work, you want to just record raw audio out in the field, maybe you want to hook it up to a, Line 6 US2 or some other kind of audio interface that allows you to connect XLR inputs. This, along with Audition, will have you covered. It'll allow you to capture that raw audio, take it in, save it to a computer. That's especially important if you're one of those ones who, like me and like a couple other people in the group, most of the times we run and gun guerrilla style, so we don't really want, a 15-pound camera. We'd much rather have a digital SLR. And let's be honest, audio into a digital SLR, either from the native mic or an input mic, is really not that great. Even if you're running an adapter. Or a preamp, for that matter. You're going to want to take it into a program such as, Logic, Ableton, Audition, SoundForge, Pro Tools, whatever you have your hands on. Now, like I said, this is a little bit more cumbersome, if you will, but you have the ability to drop in a lot more audio effects. You have the ability to bring in a lot more VST, as well as plugins. You can have your different folders set up. I mean, it's one of those things that it's really, really nice once you get it figured out. Just like everything else I talked about with Audition, you have essentially your mixer, you also have your multitrack, you have all of your effects and little tweaky bits down at the bottom. It is all good to go. Now, one of the problems with Ableton, unless you get it packaged with something like a UX2 from Line 6 or something else like that, it's a little pricey. Not as pricey as Pro Tools, but it's still a little pricey. You're going to be spending about $500 for Ableton Live 9, which is a standard box. That's, of course, not a download, but let's see what the download is. It's about $270 if you do a download, not the box. If you go over to the Live Suite, you're looking at about $800. So it's not exactly what you would consider cheap. Also, if you come in and you say you're a student and you're wanting it more to, kind of fumble around with stuff like that. Educational. An educational download is actually $270. So apparently, okay. I take that back. I didn't realize that it switched from retail to educational. It's $500 for a box through B&H. They don't have a download only for the retail. That $270 was educational download. I apologize for that. I didn't see the switch over. But yeah, you're going to paying a little bit more money. Finally, on this list of stuff that you could be using, we have Sony's SoundForge Pro. Now, this is one of, how would I put it? It's one of the easier things to figure out on your own. Just a couple tutorials or a couple notebooks, tips, tricks, or a couple notes, I should say, tips and tricks on the internet. You should be able to get up and going relatively quick. Not a big deal. One of the downsides with SoundForge, though, you can work on multiple tracks all at once, but not all at once. I know that's confusing as hell when I put it that way, but if you allow me to explain, you can have multiple audio files, such as these two different files, open at the same time, and you could switch back and forth and edit between the two. However, you cannot get a multi-track setup, such as Ableton's or Audition's, with SoundForge. Don't ask me why. I'm still scratching my head on that. I really don't use SoundForge anymore. I used to many, many years ago, before I hopped on and started using Adobe. This is probably, I'm going to say probably about 10 years ago is when I was using SoundForge. And I believe it was either right before Sony bought them or right after they were purchased by Sony. But either way, ever since then, there has never been a multi-track, setup like Ableton or Audition available in SoundForge. Hopefully they'll change that. Don't hold your breath on it. But on top of that, you do have the ability to run video just like the other two. Of course, you can go through and, You can have your system set up to where you can find your files relatively easily. You can have all your plugins displayed, including VST. It comes with quite a few different little plugins to mess with time, or mess with, mess with time, reverb and echo, things like that, a little bit of distortion. Maybe you wanted to drop a noise gate on it, or, a chorus, what have you. You can do that in SoundForge. You can also do a few other things, but all in all, this is a great little stepping stool to get by. I mean, there are other programs on the market that are just a little bit more expensive than SoundForge that I would probably put my money into. And to be quite honest with you, I'd probably rather edit my audio in something like Premiere instead of SoundForge. It's a personal preference. I know that you can do a lot of the things in SoundForge that you can do in the other two programs I've already mentioned, but for me, the interface and how things work, I'm just not a huge fan of it. I mean, it's the truth. The second point that I bring up with SoundForge, this one, yes, I understand it's a little old. They have the Audio Studio 10, but look at that, $60. $60 is something that you can throw down if you want, get yourself going, get stuff made, and potentially step up from there if you do not want to go with a subscription-based plan like, say, Adobe Creative Cloud. Like I said, though, that is the Audio Studio 10. If you jump into SoundForge Pro 11, which, again, this is, a download. You're not getting physical media. You're still looking at about $270. If you get it boxed, again, this is all through B&H. I'm not sure what Musician's Friend or Guitar Center would be, but boxed, you're looking at about $275. At the end of the day, if you were to ask me what program I would explicitly use for editing audio, for video, to use with making short films or feature films, so on and so forth, and I'm on a budget, I'm going to go, I closed it already, well, minimized it anyway. I'm going to go the Creative Cloud way just because it's a little bit cheaper. If I had the choice and I had the money and I was able to basically live my life on 30-day demos, which there are ways to do that, although I'm not suggesting that you do that because that's kind of mischievous, go Ableton. It'll fit you a little bit better. If you have a Mac, yes, go Logic. But like I said, that's if you have the money. That is pretty much all I have for this. I hope I wasn't too back and forth and too confusing. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to drop them in the comment box below. I'll get back to them as soon as I see them. I try not to lollygag on stuff like that. I'm happy you came by and watched this. I hope that it was a little informative for you. I could break it down a little bit more, but we'd be looking at a very long video, and I wanted to try and keep it somewhat short and sweet, even though that didn't really happen. Don't forget, hit the thumbs up button if you liked this, found it informative. If you completely hated it, by all means, give it a thumbs down. I don't like seeing the little thumbs down thing in my analytics, but at the same time, it also lets me know what you guys are liking and what you're disliking. And by all means, please do not forget to subscribe. It helps me out tremendously, and it lets you know every single time I put up a video. My end goal is to try and help you guys out that are either, just getting into the whole digital cinematography world, or maybe you just want to make a couple short films and you're just goofing around, which there's nothing wrong with that. I love doing that. I actually like doing that more than working on actual projects. But even if you're doing like animations, if you're doing video games, which video games are a completely different story because you can get into, you know, WYs and all that, or WWISE, however you want to call that program. But anywho, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'm here to try and help spread some information, hopefully not wrong information, and try and help you guys out before you start putting money into investments, because that's essentially what all this is. It's not just a toy, it's not just a hobby. In the end, whether or not it's a hobby or not, it still comes down to being an investment. At least that's the way I look at it. But for now, that's all I have. Again, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And until next time, I'm going to go around and try and figure out how Doc Brown made the flux capacitor for the DeLorean, because I'd really like a time machine. I'll catch you guys next time.